not clear, just let me know. I will, so I'll just kind of start with like a,
Minnie, did you share the screen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. Yeah, let me try that.
Because I'm not seeing Tim's screen.
Yeah, so you need, I'll need to share my screen. So let's do that first.
Yeah, Tim is, oh, sorry. I think I put Tim.
Now I can see the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it too.
You can see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I will, so are we ready to start then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is, what we're looking at now is the core student experience of our platform. So we have, you see an image, a question image. It's a multiple choice question, but we can also do fill in the blank questions on the system. So we have students that are competing over these questions, okay? In our system, every time a student answers a question correctly, that student essentially gets 1 point, okay? So you see on the top left, you see individual player score. So that's the individual level of competition, okay? So in this match is actually a live match going on here. So that means that both teams are playing against each other live in real time. So when that happens, the system actually matches students from opposing teams, essentially 1-to-1, so that there's an individual level of competition going on. So here Stefan was matched against Annie. And so there's that individual level of competition. When it's a non-live match, meaning when the two teams are not playing at the same time with each other, then this student would be playing against his personal best score. That's basically his best score that he's posted in his account. So there's still an individual level of competition. It's just not the same as when the two teams are playing live. So on the right side, over here is the team score. Now, we calculate team score, but the system is built to calculate it in different ways. But in our events, we normally calculate team score as the top 5 player scores. So we simply add up the top 5 player scores, and that's your team score. Now, the system is built so that it's always calculating this team score in real time. So at all the student scores from the team and identifying the top 5 scores at any given time, adding them up and presenting it on the scoreboard. So the composition of the 5 players may change during the match, and the system will recognize that. The idea is that in our platform, you can have technically as many students as you want playing. So you can have 100 kids or 50 kids or 25 kids. But we're taking just the top 5 scores of however many students are playing in that match. Now, it could be top 10 player or top 15 player. That's all something that can be discussed and can be done. But that's the idea of how the scoring works, or how we deliver a live scoring mechanism. Now, the bottom 5 here, you'll see this says top 5 players. So the system also displays the top 5 player scores from that team as the match is taking place. So this is another nice, useful, motivating feature that we have, because even if you're not playing live against the other team, this functionality still gives kids a motivational boost to try and appear on the scoreboard, try to be one of the top 5 player scores. And then the time clock, it's fairly simple. It shows you the time remaining, and then each of these notches around the clock represents a single question. So the clock kind of helps you keep pace. It keeps you, gives you an alert essentially of where you are in the actual test. Are you 20% done, 50% done, etc.? And it also helps you with the pace of your match. So if you start falling beyond pace, falling back, this will turn red, alerting you that you're no longer on pace to finish the test. But if you're fine, then if you're on time, then it'll stay white like this. And on this, you can scroll through questions. You don't have to answer the questions in any particular order. You're not given any specific time to answer any question. You're given an allotment of time. Usually it's 30 minutes in our events. And you can divide that time however you want between questions. Okay? So that's the core experience of the students. Really note real quick, you can have images attached to any question as well. So that's the core of experience of the students. That's basically what all of our competition structures are built around. We're building around this core student experience, okay? So now when we have Math Madness, to kind of just give you a little bit more of a feel for that event itself, the structure, I'm going to the 2018 standings. So first you have a page of all the participants. We have a middle school event and a high school event going on now. So you can look at all the teams that are, playing in the event. That we've got roughly almost 600 between the high and middle schools. You can click on any school and you can see the teacher, etc. So this is just kind of gives you an idea of where the schools are, et cetera, et cetera. Here's all the rules of the events, which are obviously useful. We won't go into those now, but the next page is rankings. This is probably the most popular page in the entire platform. I mean, we can measure this with hits on Google, and this is really what people end up hitting the most. I think both students and teachers, quite frankly. So these are the percentages. We take simply a percent, an ongoing average percentage of the top 5 player scores for each match. So these are the top scores. You can search your team in the search box, so it's pretty easy. We only show the top 50% of scores of teams. The idea behind that is that we don't want this platform to be, we want to reduce as much of the negatives around competition as we can. So publicly shaming teams, who might be ranked at the bottom doesn't fall in too well with that philosophy. So our general idea is kind of eliminate the negatives and let the positives that remain run wild. And so that's why we only choose the top 50% of scores. Now we also do it for individuals, as you can see, as your team has as well. I think a lot of 100% corrects. We also distinguish by average time per question. It's not something I'm thrilled about as a deciding mechanism between ranked teams. The problem is there's really no other substitute. We've thought lots and lots and lots about this, and there's really no practical, logistically easy method to distinguish rankings between teams other than average time for answering a question. So it's not the ideal solution, I admit, but it's a very workable one. And so we've used it. And really, there's never been any blowback or criticism from teachers about this. I think people understand you have to have some way to determine a tie, especially during a match. If you have an all or nothing match where one team wins and advances and one team loses, you have to have a deciding mechanism. And since it's not feasible to have, an extra test every time there's a tie, it just becomes practically impossible to do that. You have to have this mechanism. So that's the rankings page. Here's the bracket. Here's the bracket page. This is modeled after, in the United States, one of the most popular sporting events in the U.S. each year is the NCAA college basketball tournaments. That's held for both men and women. It's basically a 64-team bracket. Well, they actually have a few more teams, but it ends up being a 64-team bracket. that single elimination all the way down to a championship. So it takes 6 rounds to get to basically to have the full series take place. Now for the normal Math Madness, we don't go straight into the bracket tournament. We start with 4 weeks of scrimmaging where we match teams in our events from around the United States each week. So each week a team is matched to another team from across the country. It's a new team each week. And then after we've run those 4 weeks, then we start this bracket tournament. And that, like I said, will run 6 rounds, which basically is another 6 weeks. So the event is a total of 10 weeks. And then we do a practice round right before it, which is optional, but it's highly useful for new teams. So it's a 10-week event with an additional week. Of the 4 scrimmage rounds that I mentioned at the beginning, 2 of those are individual rounds, independent rounds where kids must play independently. They must do their own work and answer their own questions. And that's the same for all the bracket matches. They're all individual-based play. But in 2 of the other rounds of the scrimmage phase, those first 4 weeks, we have what we call collaboration rounds. And during those rounds, the teacher is allowed to divide the team into little mini teams of basically 2 or 3 each. I won't go into all the details, but the idea is divide the team into little mini teams, and then those little mini teams can work together to solve the problems. And I can say for sure that those are 2 of the most popular, if not the most popular rounds of the entire event, both among students and teachers. So I think they're very successful. I think they're very pedagogically effective for kids, not just from a learning experience, but also from a pure dynamics perspective. I think it goes a long way in developing the esprit de corps of the group, the team's spirit or the team pride. So that's the structure of the event, of the Math Madness event. It would largely be unchanged with an implementation in India. There'd be little tweaks, but this is the main structure we'd have for it. I can imagine maybe having, instead of a 64 team, we might have a 32 team, or just start with a 16 and just have more brackets. You can see that we have multiple brackets for the high school. We have 6 brackets because we have almost 400 schools playing. So what we do in this case is we have a Division 1, and the Division 1 is like the title bracket. That's for the top 64 teams. And then all these other divisions, 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E, those are all divisions based on team size. So this is the smaller on average teams. These teams are a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and then these are our biggest teams playing. And again, this is a useful way, I think, of dividing brackets, as opposed to having the top 64 here, the next 64 here, the next 64 here, the next 64 here, and here and here. Because then again, you're starting to publicly embarrass those lowest ranked teams. And we don't want to do that. We try to avoid that as much as we can. So dividing brackets by team size, I think does a really good job of preserving the dignity of the teams. Now, inside each bracket, teams are seeded according to the NCAA protocol. By seeded, I mean positioned. So Naperville North is a number 1, so it's a top seed, and Menlo School would be roughly 64, 61, 2, 3, or 4. So they're matched against each other. And then you have the same thing down here where you basically have the 2 and the 15 seed matched against each other again. So what the idea of that seeding is the top teams play the worst teams so that the top teams essentially advance fairly across the brackets, as opposed to a system where you might have the 2 top teams playing against each other at the beginning, and then the level of the competition kind of diminishes over time. So this way it kind of accelerates over time, or it's at least preserved. So that, again, is the main structure. Here's a page. This is called the Watch Match page. This is very popular, like among parents and siblings and principals and any sort of person connected with these teams, but who isn't actually on the team. Here they can watch the team playing and see their score, the student scores updating in real time. Obviously, this isn't a match taking place right now, but if it were, you could see the team score and you could see all the students' individual scores updating in real time. So that's kind of it's a way to kind of thrill the people outside the team and really kind of involve them in a fairly meaningful way. What we'd like to do in the future is have a way for like a parent to kind of send in the U.S. we call it a cheer, like a rooting for your team. So you might send like a little message to your student, like, great job, or great answering that question correctly, etc. Some way to kind of really meaningfully involve parents and friends and siblings with the match, just like what happens in a real athletic contest where you have an audience. We want to kind of develop audience capabilities in this event as well going forward. So again, the entire everything what we're trying to do is take what you see in the world of athletic sports and bring the classic game mechanics, those classic game features, and bring those into the academic setting so that kids can compete academically online just as easily and just with as much success, hopefully, as they compete athletically on the sports field. So having a way to have an audience falls into that structure very well. So that kind of gives you an overview of like the structure itself, a little bit about our philosophy. So now I'm going to go into Sham's account, his actual teacher account, and I'll just kind of walk quickly through it just so people can get an idea of how it works. I'll first show where it would start for a teacher is you would create an account. Now these accounts are free to create. So and it's basically on any page on our website, artelabs.com. You just fill out this form. It takes less than a minute. You click login and voila, you've got an account. Now, what we have to talk about is we'll probably, in the longer term, create a separate instance for India, meaning that we'll maybe change the website name and have something, a website exclusively for India. And we'll probably have to have a separate server arrangement and things like that. So it may not be that they're logging into artelabs.com, and maybe something else. But in any case, this is what they'd be seeing, this coach account. So once you've logged in and created your team, your account, you can see all the information that you just entered is right here. Okay, the school name, et cetera, et cetera. You've got your username. You can change your password. Up here, you can add an image of yourself, add a short biography, and then all this information gets presented to your opponent coach, and including the email address. And it's just kind of a way of trying to, introduce teachers to each other, start conversations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's your profile page. The next main page is actually the adding a team. So we try to have a kind of an efficient categorization pattern in terms of creating a team name. So your team's name is basically a combination of the grade level it is and the subject. So if I wanted to create a team, call it second grade, math, and then you have to also add in a mascot. Again, we're trying to emulate the world of sports. So all sports teams have some sort of mascot or team name. It could be the Eagles, whatever it is. and then I click it, and that becomes that's a team. Now you have the shell of a team when I click create. So now Sham at some point created his high school, or maybe I did it for him, but created his high school math team. So you see that here, high school HS math team. It's repeated here. You can add an image of your mascot here, whatever it is, and you can put the mascot name right here. Now when you're adding a student, this is the roster page. So there are two ways to add a student. You can add a student with or without using the student's email address, okay? So you can see on Sham's roster, he added students without using their email address. So in that case, the student or the system generates a username for the student automatically, and you don't see it now, but it also generates a temporary password. The teacher then gives that username and password over to the student, and then the student can activate the account. And then, of course, change the password once logged into the account. But if you add a student, let's say he's going to add me, and here's my email. This is a trick in Gmail. You can just add a number and it'll go to you. Now, in this case, the system will send me an email with that invitation, and you can see here that I'm pending. Okay? So until I receive that invitation and accept it, I stay as pending. Okay? Here's my email address. Here's a copy link. So for a lot of times what will happen is a teacher will not get, or the student will not get the invitation because of a network blocker or whatever it is. But a teacher can click this button, copy link, it gets copied to the computer's clipboard, and then this teacher can paste that link into an email and then send it directly to the student. So in other words, the key to understand is the way we've built that will solve the problem of adding your students to your team no matter what. Even if you run into email network blocks, there's a solution here to solve that problem. Now, if you want to delete a student, you can bench a student here. You just got to click a button. That will prevent the student from being included in any match. Now, there's only any real utility to this if you want to discipline the student. He was cheating or whatever it is, and you exclude him. But in all other cases, you might as well have the student as starting because it doesn't hurt your team score. Again, the team score is always the top 5 player scores. So it's not like it's going to go and take zeros for all the other students who didn't show up for the match or for whatever reason. Now, if you don't want a student on your team anymore, you can always click this trash icon, and that will delete that student from your team for good. You can add the student back, but for then it's a permanent action. Okay? So now, this is kind of side functionality, so I'm not going to describe it too much, but this is the Create Match page where teams who are involved with Math Madness and really who just create an account can create their own matches. So they can create an intra-team match, in which case they divide their team into mini teams that play against each other, or they can create an inter-team match. Now you have 2 teams here. You have a middle school math team and a high school math team. So you can hypothetically challenge this team, and these 2 teams, high school math and middle school math, would play against each other. Or you can challenge a team in the greater or RHA Labs network. So here are all the teams that you could possibly scroll through. So you would just search your team by the last name or by the last name, and here's just pulling up Kelly's, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the 2 kind of structures, either intra-team or inter-team, that you play. For the Math Madness event, if you're a Math Madness participant, we actually store like years past content that you can play over. So here's all 2017's question sets, and you can see all the questions. You can click on any question and see the question itself, the answer, et cetera, et cetera. You're also free to create your own set of questions. You can create a set, let's just call it test set. And in that test set, you can start adding your own questions. So, 2 + 2 equals, and then fill 4 and fill 5, et cetera. And you can also create a fill in the blank question. So teachers are also free to create their own question sets. Now we use, for the advanced notation in our system, we use what's called LaTeX. LaTeX is a markup language that allows you to get this kind of beautiful notation presented. Okay. Now, and I won't show you the details of that, but if you want to do that, you have to be, and create your own questions, you'd have to be familiar with LaTeX, unless you're just entering very basic questions of mathematics. And then the final step is to just choose the date and time for the match. If you're challenging someone else, you'll put their time in, especially if it's non-live. Otherwise, if it's a live match, you just have to fill in one time. You have the match length, and then you have the scoring type. And remember, I said it could be top 5 players, 10, 15, whatever you prefer. Okay, then you just create the match, and then it would appear on your schedule page. Okay, now what's appearing here, and it would appear on the class match tab here. But I didn't go ahead and create it, but that's where it would appear right here. And then if you got an invitation, you'd see it down here, and then you could see your sent. So if you sent an invitation to another team, you'd have it there. Okay? So now with Math Madness, in our Math Madness event that we're hosting for Shyam's team and others, this is where you see matches. Now these are matches that we created for teams, meaning Arete Labs created for teams. And as you may know, Shyam is, which is great, in the championship rounds this week. This is the final round of the mini Madness event that we created. So this shows the opponent for this week, the school, the city, etc., the team name. It's a 30-minute match, top 5 players scoring. This is the opponent coach, Patrick Hillman. A little brief introduction. This is that teacher's match time, 12 p.m. IST. Now, it looks like you two have basically arranged a time to play live, which is great, because that over here is Shyam's time, Friday at 12:10 p.m. So you guys, it's looking, are going to have a live match, which is awesome. But if Shyam were to change it, let's say he wanted to play Saturday instead, then it's a non-live match. So the opponent is playing this day, Shyam is playing this day, and you don't see the green anymore, you just see red and blue. Red is the opponent, blue is the home team, okay? But now I'm going to change it back to Friday, and you'll see it go back to being green, which signifies it's a live match. One last functionality to note here is team availability. Now, you can add time spans here. Let's say you're actually free 9 a.m. to all the way to 4 or 5 p.m. I'm adding that time span, and here it is. Now, what happens with that data, this is not when you'll actually play. The match time is when you're actually going to play the match. This team availability is when you could play the match. And with this data, not only is it presented to the other team, other teacher, so that teacher might have seen, oh, Shyam is available all day Friday. Maybe we can get a live match because we're available from 12 till 1 o'clock on Friday, or whatever it is. Not only is there that benefit, but also in Math Madness, the system takes this data and it tries to match teams that have common team availability so that they can actually play live matches against each other. So the system will try to arrange matches for teams, for example, that have Friday available. So this set of 100 teams might all have set Friday as an available, and the system will try to match those teams together. The other criteria is skill level. So the system avoids creating matches between like number 1 seeds, number 1 ranked teams, and number 500 ranked teams. It tries to keep teams, and we can set the rank parameters, but in Math Madness, it's usually set to around 50, like 25 to 50 ranking positions. So that kind of is a way of maximizing the live matches, but still keeping the competition as tight or as even as possible. So finally, so that's the schedule page. The final page is the results page. And on this page, you see a chart of the team's overall performance across time, okay? You can also look up any student individually and see that student's performance across time. And then for each of the matches that the team played in, all these matches, you can drill down and find the individual results. So in this last match from last week, Jam's team scored 35, this team scored 24, okay? This student, which I selected, scored 5 out of 7. The student's personal best is 7 out of 7. Then if you want, you can download an Excel report. And with that Excel report, you can see all the various data of that team. And it might take a second to unload that. So here's the statistics for all the students, the general statistics, and then you can actually drill down by questions. So I think there were 7 or whatever questions on this. You can see how each student answered. The green is obviously correct, red is incorrect. And you can get an idea of how exactly they performed, which makes for a very good teachable moment. The nice thing about this is that we post this information immediately after the match so that it's fresh and can be reviewed with students while they're still engaged, right? Which I think is a great time to proceed with teaching. Now here's the other page. This is the PDF of the questions and solutions for this particular round, okay? So we try to make this as not just a competition event, but really a teachable tool for to help facilitating teaching and learning. And then finally, so that's your results page. It'll also show just a quick ranking of all the students. And then finally, we have the events page, which is where your teams, your teachers would be signing up for not only next fall, but we'll probably use this page to sign teachers up for this kind of mini pilot that we're doing in these next couple weeks. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Maybe we'll do that after this video. But that this is probably where they'll be signing up for in either case. And basically, you'll have the level of events. In the United States, we have a high school Math Madness, a middle school Math Madness, and next fall, we're adding an elementary school Math Madness, okay? So you would choose the level, and then you would choose the event you wanted. So we're in the US, we're going to have a little mini madness, which is like a shortened version of the full Math Madness that we run in February and March. This is the Math Madness International that Sham is playing in right now. So what we would have here is something that said something like 2019 India pilot, and then down in the next one it might be 2019 fall India Math Madness, official event. And then I think we're just going to have one pricing for 5 to 8 players teams, and then a single price. And then you just basically click submit, and then that invoice, etc., appears over here. You appear as registered. You can download a copy of your invoice here, and then whoever the teacher can then present it to whatever bookkeeper it is that would make the payment. So that is basically the event and the structure in a nutshell. Math Madness, we are in our 6th season now, so our 5th year running it. We have, like I said, almost 600 schools playing. We had another 75 teams in a separate event that we tried this year that we just offered for free, just to get teams trying it. So we had close to 650 schools, and then the international schools. So we're close to 700 schools using it. The platform's been working extremely well. We've made a lot of kind of refinements to the structure, so we really had a nice, smooth experience this last fall, and we're going to be doing more tweaks this coming spring, so that I think by next fall it will be virtually flawless. There will always be little errors here and there, especially front end, especially as browsers update and things like that. But the structure itself, I think, is quite sound at this point after years of developing it. So that essentially concludes what I wanted to cover. And then if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, hi Tim, thanks for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so I have some question. Like, so when the team, is there a minimum number of members should be in the team, like minimum number of students?
Yeah. So what I was talking with Sham, we're probably going to have 5 to 8 player teams.
Oh, okay.
So minimum 5, maximum 8, and then we'll use top 5 player scoring. So you'd want to, if you have only 4 students, you would essentially get a 0 for your 5th student in that scoring mechanism. So you'd want to have a minimum 5, and then I think we're going to cap it at 8 students per team.
Okay, and also does this system select the competing team, like the other team, or
the system? Yeah. So in the 4 weeks of scrimmaging, the system is always making those selections. But when we get to the bracket tournament itself, I'll go back to that. The system based on the 2 what we call qualifying rounds. Remember I said there were 2 rounds where kids play collaboratively in that first 4-week period. The other 2 weeks are what we call qualifying rounds. And from those 2 rounds, we take all the data from teams and create a ranking of teams. And then based on that ranking, we assign all the teams to these bracket positions in this first row.
okay.
And then after that, it's the winner advances. So you can see Richmond won, so they go here. Trideferen won, so it went here. Falcon Cove won, so it went here. So once we're in the bracket phase, the system arranges every single match. But during those first 4 weeks, during what we call the scrimmage phase, during those weeks, the system matches teams based on those 2 criteria I mentioned. One was their ranking, like their kind of relative ranking, and also if they have common time availability so that they can play live against each other. One feature to note in this, which I think is very useful functionality, is you'll see, obviously, in a bracket structure like this, half the teams lose the first round, right? So what do they do for all these future rounds? Well, we've built functionality that lets those teams continue playing. So they can opt in, and I won't be able to show it on Sham's, I won't be able to show it to you, but in any case, I'll go to the schedule page. There would be a little section right here that had buttons that say in and out. And you can opt in to play each of those rounds. You can skip 1 week, play another week, etc. So it's really flexible for you to continue playing the season in and around your own schedule. So all teams in Math Madness can play a 10-week event. They can play all the 10 weeks if they want to. So that's and when you combine that with the create match functionality, they're getting a lot of competition activity for the dollar spent, the rupee spent.
Okay.
So, Minnie, do you want to hear more about? You understood the kind of support challenges that can come, right, when we start the tournament in a week's time?
Yeah. So we were thinking about DPS, right? And
Yeah.
they have so many schools. So when I was talking to you, you said like we can have each school, we can have individual students playing each other to form that team.
I did not understand the question. Like from what I told you, yes.
Like 5 to 8 players for a team, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So like DPS, they have for each grade, they have like I think four different, almost like 120 students in if you take 7th grade or 8th grade.
No, that the school, because like what Tim and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. What we are planning is not more than like 32 teams participating in the first round.
Now,
This is kind of what I defer to sort of your opinion on that. I mean, if you wanted to have more playing, we could talk about that, but your expertise is higher than mine here.
Yeah, like, and we can have more team if you want, Mini, but I would ideally prefer it to create that kind of a kind of a premium league kind of a thing. Like, it should be only some kind of a limited number of students, right? Limited number of teams.
so for example, when DPS is competing, there's all 200 schools participating. So all the 200 schools, there will be one team representing each school, right?
No, I thought, Sham, you wanted to have multiple teams per school.
Yeah, we can add depending upon if we are getting response from, let us say that tomorrow the email is going to go out from the chairman to the schools, right? Let us see that if we are getting 20 or 30 schools or 40 schools responding, they are forming teams to participate, then we don't have to go to each school and ask for, you can have more team members, more teams in the same school, right?
Okay.
It all depends on how the response are going to come, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So ideally, the minimum to create an environment of a tournament and the spirit which Tim is bringing to the table, the Math Madness idea, I believe that there needs to be that kind of a spirit needs to be conveyed. Then minimum 32 teams needs to be there, and ideally that the 32 schools participating, right? Not 10 teams from one school. Then the spirit is lost, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
But let us see how it is coming. Because if it is going to be even outside DPS is what I had a call with Rujira ma'am, and after this I'll talk with principal and chairman. So I would even like to have outside DPS schools participating in the first round, right? There's a true sense of a tournament, right? A kind of like it will be like all elite schools participate. I can invite a Doon school, for example. Maybe Behar British school we can invite, right? Oberoi or Dhirubhai Ambani. So I don't know who all will participate. First, the email will go out to 270 DPSs in India and abroad. we will wait for their response, then start inviting others. But definitely, I am going to send a blast to like all the 6,000 schools in our list, right? In our selected list.
Yeah.
Not inviting, but informing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that they will be informed. So if they are showing interest, then we will do another thing, right? Something else. So that blast, I will have the copy of the blast. So probably as soon as our support manager, Ms. Indu, is up, like we should have that, right?
Okay. No, but so these teams, who are they will compete with the international teams. Is it something we have to work on, or is it that's how it is set? Like, say for example, there's one or two teams made to the top, and will these teams compete with the international team, or this is specific to India?
This event we're doing just specifically with Sham and
Okay.
No,
your
so it's
yeah.
not about India. It is the network we have built many over years, right?
Yeah, we
It
have
can be from
the Middle East schools from Middle East and
It can be from Malaysia, Penang International School,
also
all the
Sri
schools
Lankan
which
team
is
will also participate, I think.
yeah, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, right? All those schools we will give, because this is DPS is supporting us, right? First we will give the invite a privilege. If the 32 schools in the first round all are coming from DPSs, so then if they want, if they are okay, we will invite more schools from outside. Otherwise, I want to give them that to be a completely DPS tournament. But principal and chairman told me is that they would like to have other schools also coming in, right? So that they will know their level, right?
Yeah.
So that is and we will see. We will keep our options open, like depending upon the response we are getting. We will make changes, right? We have no clue. Maybe we will not get the response as we expect, right? We don't know. So we will, but without any sales effort, we are just inviting 217 schools tomorrow. So we are not aggressively selling it, but we are informing around 6,000 schools in 2 days, right? And we will see the response. Then maybe we will meet again by Wednesday or Thursday and see where we are and decide.
Sham, how are you going to aggregate the data when you send something to the 6,000 schools? Are you going to be sending them a form, like a Google document, or
yes,
a form?
Yes, I mean, so the tools which we use are, we use the constant contact as our emailing thing, right? So so the email will go out from the international program group. So probably in next 2 days, right? After the DPS settled down, the DPS email will go from DPS chairman itself, not from us.
We'll go from DPS, right.
Okay, so that data, I am assuming, will come from them. They will give us the information, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
But our email will go. Email we use the constant contact.
Yeah, but what's the data you're going to actually get? What are the questions you're going to ask teachers?
So say, for example, this is what I received your email draft. Thank you for that. So
Sure.
I will make it into add it into a regular format which we have, and send it as an email. There will be links in the in our so when we use constant contact, we will have links to everything, so that we will know who opened, we will know. Who clicked on the link, we will know. And if they, on the link, if we give a Google Doc link and if ask few questions, that is a possibility. We can use a survey. We have capability of using Survey Monkey to collect the data on if they are interested or not, right? To participate.
Because I think it would be useful to get data on when during the year is best for them. We've kind of assumed that next fall or the fall is the best, but I think it would be good to get data on that. It might be good to get data on how long the events they'd want it to last. Normally it's, but they prefer, 6 weeks or 12 weeks of competition. Maybe we should talk a little bit further before you send that as to what, because this is just from my years of experience. If we get data on this, it's going to help us. It could help us a lot shape the event itself and the timing of it, which will help sales, etc.
Absolutely. So we will, the kind of survey questions we will ask, we will decide. So you can, if you, all these points, if you can send it as an email, like we will add it and I will send you, before sending it out, I will send you a draft. So,
okay.
So it will be, so just like how you are collecting, we also constantly collect feedbacks. And so we use the same format to collect the data, so that it will be a kind of instead of a bottom down approach, it can be a bottom up approach. We can look instead of a top down, right? So based on what they really want, we can go behind,
Yeah, especially I think if we could get their level of interest. Are you very interested in something like this? Moderately interested? Not very interested? Also, I think pricing would be help. How much would you, if assuming a 5 to 8 player team, how much would you be willing to pay for this? $300, $270? What's the minimum you'd pay? And that could be really useful to us going forward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that, right? And so we will see. Once I draft I believe that tomorrow itself I will work on it and create it. And I work with Indu and our support team and create a questionnaire and send it to you by tomorrow evening or something like that. Right?
Okay, that sounds good.
So before we send out our email, I am assuming that our Wednesday we must send out a blast to that 6,000 schools, right? Which is on our top list. It's not like they are all going to join, but they are all our top. It's already on our database. They are receiving one information or another, right? In various cases. So we will, and more, at least 160 of them, we have, the principals have authorized us to send SMS messages directly to them of things of absolute importance, right? So we have used that only once this year. So this will be the second time we will be sending it out. Those 160 top schools, principals, or lead teachers, as mobile numbers we have. They have given it to us, right? Authorized us to send it. So that will be another blast we will be doing. So that also, the draft also, I will send it to you for correction. Then we will have a small script for the support team to call a few people, follow up the prospects, and not aggressively selling or anything, but informing and getting the data what we want. And if somebody is, because all these numbers, all these places, we will give one WhatsApp number and one number to call if they have any question. So that person who is receiving the call also needs to be informed. If they are asking questions, they need to answer some basic questions. And if they don't know, they should set up a meeting with me or you, right? Tim, I mean. So that's all those things, modalities, by end of day tomorrow, we should have in place.
Okay, very good. And you want to set, when did you say you were planning to send these emails out? By Tuesday or?
So the first email on this idea will go out to 217 schools.
That's from the chairman.
That is on Tuesday.
Yeah,
that's their Tuesday. Their Tuesday means our Monday night.
Okay, but for the 6,000 you're sent, when do you plan to send those out?
Mine, like, ideally, I would like to send it at least by Wednesday evening, not later than Thursday evening.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, I think we should easily. I mean, I'm sure I can. Whatever I need to contribute, I can.
Yeah. Like, I will give you a link to an access to Constant Contact, so you will see that there, and you can log in and you will see the response there also, right? And the Survey Monkey, the surveys which we can do. But though, let us not keep many knows better than me that most of the Indian schools may not respond. They are more familiar with, more happy to make a phone conversation rather than fill out a form, right? So I'm expecting a lot of calls to come.
Yeah.
Or people telling, "Oh, call us back," right? We are interested, but call us back. But they'll be reluctant. It's not in their nature to fill out the form but we do get it. Like, I would say that it is not going to be as equal to as we are doing a blast in United States or Canada.
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So we have everything recorded, Minnie, right?
Yes.
And Tim, you have your consent that we can share it with our team, right?
Yes, you can share that, sure.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Thank you so